Libra, there's a light inside you that something is trying to extinguish. Not all at once, not in an obvious way, but in small doses. In the moments when you choose to shrink away so as not to bother anyone. In the times when you maintain silence so as not to create conflict. In situations where you feel you are giving more than you are receiving, but continue giving anyway because you no longer know how to do it differently. And here's what the stars are signaling to Libra right now, with a clarity that rarely appears like this. This is about to be removed from your path. But before that happens, you need to understand one thing. Because if you don't understand, you'll call removal a loss. You'll try to hold on to what needs to be let go. What's trying to extinguish your light doesn't necessarily have a face. It's not necessarily a person. It's a pattern. An old agreement, a version of you that learned at some point that shining fully came at too high a cost. And it is precisely this agreement that the cosmos is now dismantling. By the end of this video, something will make sense in a way it never has before. Not about the world, about you, about why you've come this far, being so great and living so small. There is something in your path right now. Not necessarily a person, not an obvious situation, that has been operating at exactly that frequency. It has found the exact point where you are willing to shrink, and it has been feeding off of that. Not necessarily maliciously. Those who turn off the lights rarely know what they are. Some present themselves as love, others as need. But the effect is the same. You emerge from these interactions feeling a little smaller than when you entered, with that vague sensation that you left something of yourself behind, but you can't quite name what. The stars are pointing to Libra now, with a clarity I rarely see. This pattern is being removed. The cosmos is not operating with the delicacy that Libra would like. Whatever is trying to extinguish your light will be removed from your path. But before that happens, you need to understand one thing, because if you don't, you'll feel the removal as a loss. And you'll try to hold on to what needs to be let go. Imagine a lit candle. The candle doesn't see its own flame, it only feels the heat. The entire room is illuminated by it, every corner, every face. But the candle itself doesn't have access to that vision. It only feels the consumption, the burning, the slow melting that is the price of illuminating. This is how many Libras live, aware of the effort, rarely aware of the impact. When someone tells you that you brighten up a room, part of you doesn't believe it, not out of false modesty, but because of a genuine disconnect between what you feel inside and what others perceive. You feel like you're burning up. Others see the light. And it is precisely this disconnect that the erasers exploit. They draw near to your light, bask in it, depend on it, and rarely give back what you spend, not because they are bad, but because you never presented an account. Libra doesn't operate on a transactional basis. You give because generosity is part of your nature. But there is a difference between giving by choice and giving because you no longer know how to hold on. And this is where the most important question arises, not about others, but about you, about the silent agreement you made, about the exact moment you decided that shining less was safer than truly shining. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. The Divine Path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose came to me at a time when I was trying to understand why people of light, as Libra genuinely is, spend so much time living below their potential. And the answer I found there wasn't about motivation. It wasn't about technique. It was about recognition. About understanding the internal architecture that makes Libra operate the way it does, including the part that fades. This book speaks directly to those who have felt they carry a light that has never found enough space. To those who know they have something great inside them, but have learned to hold it back. It doesn't tell you what to do. It helps you see what's already there and what's blocking it. You are now at exactly the point where this makes the most sense. Still processing, still with that feeling of active recognition, that moment of realizing something that has always been there but never had a name. This is the time to act, not to wait for clarity to come on its own later. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And while you're doing that, tell me in the comments, is there any environment or relationship in your life where you consistently notice that you shine less than you could? You don't need to explain why. Just name it. And it's from there that everything starts to make sense in a different way. Libras aren't born with a small, reserved demeanor. No child is born with the instinct to diminish their own presence. This is learned. It's learned when intensity breeds rejection, when overly boisterous joy is bothersome, when opinions that are too strong provoke conflict. And conflict for Libra has a very high emotional cost. So you learn to calibrate, to adjust, to find the volume that doesn't disturb the balance of the environment. Imagine a musician who once played at the volume he thought was right, and someone complained, just once. But it was enough for him to start playing quieter whenever other people were around. Over time, he forgot what the original volume was. Reduced volume became the norm, and when someone asked why he played so quietly, he didn't even know how to answer. It seemed like it had always been that way. This is how Libra's shrinking takes hold, not as a conscious decision, as an adaptation, as a series of small adjustments that added together result in someone living a fraction of what they could be living. And here's what makes it even more complicated. The environments that drained Libra the most rarely seemed dangerous. On the contrary, the light switches that most impact Libra are those that arrive wrapped in affection, in need, in a form of love that in practice functions as extraction. You have the eraser you desperately need, the one that transforms Libra's generosity into obligation, the one that learns you can call anytime, bring any problem, unload any burden, because Libra will hold on, will embrace you, you will find a way to help, and will rarely say you're exhausted. There's the kind of person who praises in a way that imprisons. You're the only person who understands me. I can't do it without you. These compliments seem like love. In practice, they are golden shackles. They transform Libra's light into dependence on the other person. There's the kind of environment that simply drains you, the work you never acknowledge, the social circle you consume without nurturing, the routine that leaves no room for what makes you feel alive. And Libra, with its keen relational intelligence, senses all of this. It senses it but often doesn't name it, because naming it would mean creating conflict. It would mean disappointing someone. It would mean breaking a balance that, even if unbalanced for Libra, at least seems stable to others. But here's what no light switch will tell you. A plant placed away from the sun didn't choose to wither. It was simply placed in a location that lacked what it needed. And no amount of inner effort will replace what only the sun can provide. And if you're recognizing these erasers, that dynamic where affection and extraction become confused, you know that naming isn't enough. Because Libra has already named it before, already understood it before, and yet continued to give in, continued to bask in that familiar pattern. The digital book, the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, was built for exactly this moment, when intellectual understanding has arrived, but transformation hasn't yet. It works where the pattern truly lives, not in the mind that analyzes, but in the internal system that keeps repeating. If you want to break free from this cycle, the link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. The question is, what happens internally when the balance that Libra has maintained for so long begins to weigh too heavily? Because there is a a cost that doesn't appear all at once. It accumulates in layers over time. It's the exhaustion of carrying the emotional weight of multiple relationships without anyone else carrying theirs. It's the feeling that you're always available to others, but rarely is anyone available to you in the same way. It's the scale that never rests in the center. Think of a two-pan balance. It was created to find balance. That's what defines it, what makes it useful. But when one side is consistently overloaded, the balance doesn't stabilize. It oscillates. It compensates. It expends all its energy trying to correct an imbalance that shouldn't be its responsibility to correct alone. Libra does this in relationships, in environments, in group dynamics. You intuit where the imbalance is and automatically position yourself to compensate for it. Sometimes this means yielding, sometimes remaining silent, sometimes giving up something that mattered so that the other person doesn't have to give up theirs. And the cost of this manifests itself in ways that Libra doesn't always connect to the source. It manifests as difficulty sleeping when everything seems fine on the outside, as irritability that doesn't make sense given the context, as that feeling of emptiness after social events that should have been enjoyable, as the silent question that lingers in the background, why do I give so much and feel so little? It's not ingratitude, it's the exhaustion of a system that was never designed to function in permanent compensation mode. And it is precisely at this point, when the cost begins to appear in a way that can no longer be ignored, that the most disturbing revelation needs to be named. Because what will be removed from your path isn't just external. Part of it resides within you, and that's the hardest part to face. Libra, over the years, has built something. Not consciously, not unwillingly. It has built protective mechanisms that make perfect sense given the context in which they were created. To minimize in order to avoid conflict. To yield in order to maintain harmony. To disappear a little when the atmosphere became too heavy. To soften its own intensity so that others would feel comfortable. These mechanisms worked. They protected you from things that needed to be avoided at a given time. The problem is that protective mechanisms don't automatically deactivate when the danger passes. They remain. And over time, what was built to protect you begins to limit you. Imagine an architect who designed walls to protect himself from the cold. Well-built walls, aesthetically impeccable, technically efficient. But who, over time, realizes that the walls that block the cold also block the light. That the structure that protected him has become what imprisons him, and that the beauty of the construction makes it even harder to admit that it needs to be dismantled. This is how Libra's shrinking mechanisms work. They have an internal logic, an almost invisible elegance, and that's precisely why they're so difficult to identify and even more difficult to release. But the cosmos has no patience for what no longer serves its purpose. And what is happening now in Libra's life? This discomfort, these unexpected movements, these situations that don't resolve themselves in the usual way, is the active pressure of the universe on the structures that need to fall. Not because you are weak, because you are ready. What I just described, these mechanisms that Libra built and that became a prison, seems impossible to dismantle on its own. Not because Libra lacks the intelligence for it, but because whoever built the structure is inside it. It's difficult to see the walls when you're the architect. The digital book, the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, acts as an external mirror, something outside your internal structure that can show you what you don't see from within. Not as criticism, but as clarity. If this is the moment you needed to start dismantling what no longer serves you, the link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And when you begin to understand this, when the discomfort stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like a process, something changes in how you see what's happening. The cosmic cycles affecting Libra now are not random. There is a logic to the movements that push certain patterns at certain times, and what is being pushed in Libra now is exactly the shrinking structure we described. The cosmos operates like a skilled surgeon. The surgery hurts while it's happening. The cut is real. The discomfort is real. But the purpose is not suffering. It's the removal of what was preventing full functioning. What is getting out of your way now? The relationships that are breaking down, the environments that are becoming unsustainable, the dynamics that finally reach a breaking point. These are not random losses. They are surgical removals. Each one is being removed because it had no place in the next cycle of your life. And the next Libra cycle has no room for erasers. Not because Libra has become hard or closed off, but because Libra is beginning to understand, perhaps for the first time with real clarity, the value of what it has. The light you carry is not ordinary. The ability to perceive beauty where others only see chaos, to create harmony where others only see conflict, to move people with your presence, not your volume. This is not a learned skill, it is nature. And nature of this kind cannot continue to be wasted in environments that do not understand what they have before them. The next step, and this is where many Libras get stuck, is not to wait for the cosmos to finish the job. It's to collaborate with the process. It's to start doing internally what the stars are urging externally. Like an instrument that has been tuned to play in the key of others, and that now needs to be tuned to its own key. This doesn't happen all at once. It's not an epiphany. It's practice. It's the repeated choice to occupy the space you have the right to occupy, to speak when you have something to say, even if your voice trembles, to stop apologizing for existing with intensity. It's about learning the difference between true harmony, the kind that arises from two genuine things finding a point of equilibrium, and superficial harmony, the kind that exists because one side has yielded enough to avoid visible friction. Libra has been taught to value the absence of conflict, but the absence of conflict is not the same as the presence of peace. This distinction changes everything. And when Libra begins to honor this distinction, when it begins to choose true peace instead of superficial harmony, what doesn't belong begins to reveal itself naturally. It doesn't need drama. It doesn't need confrontation. Simply, what was only sustained by its willingness to yield ceases to have any support. Retuning to your own key seems simple as an idea. In practice, it's one of the most disorienting processes a Libra can go through. Because when you spend years playing in other people's keys, your own key sounds strange, almost wrong. It's easy to confuse this strangeness with a sign that you're on the wrong path, when in fact it's a sign that you're finally on yours. The digital book, the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, is a guide to this process for those who carry the nature of Libra. It talks about how to find and sustain inner balance without depending on external approval. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And then we arrive at the point of arrival. Not the end. Libra doesn't have ends. It has cycles. But the point where the vision becomes clear enough to see the complete picture. What is being removed from your path is not punishment. It's not a sign that you were wrong. It's a sign that you have grown beyond what that situation could sustain. The light switches that are leaving. They're leaving because the version of you that needed them is transforming. The version that needed validation, that traded brilliance for acceptance, that confused presence with servility, that version is passing away. The sun didn't disappear from your life. It was behind the clouds you called protection, and there was nothing wrong with you needing those clouds at a certain point. They served their purpose, but now they are fading, And the light that will appear when they are gone, that's yours. It's exactly yours, with all the strength, all the beauty, all the capacity to move and illuminate that you spent years trying to hold back so as not to disturb. Libra, the cosmos doesn't remove what is genuinely yours. It removes what was preventing you from being fully yourself. And what remains, what stays after the removal, is the version of Libra that the world needs to see. Not the polished, carefully adjusted version, the real version, the one that shines without needing permission, the one that harmonizes because it wants to, not because it's afraid of what will happen if it doesn't. This version has always been here. It just needed space and genuine permission to emerge.